actually, it's my fourth visit to Ukraine, but my second visit since the war started. I came before Ukraine left the former Soviet Union, so I came here twice. Well, there's a kind of before and after. You know, I can describe my experience in Kiev in the 80s when I came here. I used to work and live in Moscow in the 80s, at that time, it was also around the Chernobyl time. I was in Moscow when Chernobyl went off as well, so it was quite complicated. And so, as you know, the level of communication and information about what was going on in the former Soviet Union was pretty low. And actually, it was really only, I was a diplomat in those days. By traveling, I could actually get a sense of what was going on. But the sense I had in Kiev in the 80s was still of a country, but also of a city which was determinedly proud of its language. The language was an issue that I didn't fully understand. I was a Russian speaker, and I was interested, and I was actually quite taken aback by the importance that was attached by Ukrainians in what was then the Soviet Union to the maintenance of their language. So I've always had that sense of Ukrainian, the special feature of Ukraine, which was a respect for the essence of being a Ukrainian, which was the language, the tongue, the yazik, etc. So it was interesting for me. And then I can also compare that to when I came back in June last year, not that long after the war had commenced. And I came as I gave a speech earlier today for a couple of reasons. One was symbolic, frankly. There was a sense at the time that the business community globally didn't really understand what was going on, that businesses were all stopped in Ukraine and it was all a disaster, but good luck to them in the war, in the battle. I thought differently. I thought that the economic front, which really comprised of the maintenance of the private sector in Ukraine, was really important. So I came kind of as an act of solidarity at the time. And a part of that was I spoke with all the chambers. There's 27 in the country. I spoke with them, spoke with business, spoke to government. And there's quite a contrast between when I came in June and when I came back now in March, which is, 9 months later. In June, which wasn't that far away from the invasion point as well, there was still like, how do we cope? And also, as you know, the front line was much deeper than it is now. And so the sense of alarm and trying to conduct business at those times was actually very different to, I think, where we are now, where business has kind of accommodated itself to the complexity of the situation and has shown extraordinary resilience. But I discussed with David last night, the president of the Rada, or the governing party in the Rada. You know, there's really kind of three Ukraines operating simultaneously now. You've still got business in the front line, which is really just hanging in there, and you've got to admire that, but that's actually hanging in by the skin of your teeth, and just every day is a battle, but also not just to keep your business going, but to keep your life, and also what is left of your community functioning. Then there's this kind of the business in the center, which is more secure, but the reorientation of supply lines and the way in which the business market, the economic market operates is different, so you're accommodating yourself to that. But generally you've decided to stay and not to move, which means that you're actually accommodating yourself to this kind of slightly ambiguous and it's more challenging, but it's a workable, there's a risk tolerance level which you can actually, you've got enough risk capability to manage. And then there's frankly the West, isn't it? You know, I looked at property prices in Lviv, which I'm a business person. I mean, they're at the same level as Kiev now. Well, that tells you there's a boom going on there. So there's been a massive relocation of business to Kiev, to Lviv and to the West. And so that sector, that part of the economy, is not learning how to accommodate, but is actually how to grow within that. And so looking at new opportunities, new markets, trying to convince people that business is going on. So what I can say, having been here in June, so having been here in the 80s, the independence which I saw as an essential element of kind of the Ukrainian environment was reinforced by my trip here in June last year. But between June and now, I think the challenge we saw then, which was to keep the private sector going, I think collectively we've been able to do that, though obviously we don't have 100% of the private sector functioning. We now have 50% of it functioning pretty well, another 20% really quite challenged, but still functioning. So it's not too, I mean, it's not great, but that's actually something interesting. The issue now is to help the rest of the world understand that the business community continues to function in Ukraine. You can do business here. You can invest in parts of Ukraine. You can actually start building partnerships for the future as well. And part of the challenge now is to work out, well, what is the future economy of Ukraine going to look like? In other words, that's another question we might want to discuss. Yeah, I think it's really important to understand what the ICC is. Effectively, the ICC is the voice of the real economy on a global basis. We are the most trusted business organisation in the world. I mean, that's just who we are, what we are. But more than that, we are a business organisation that stands for something. We're purpose-led and mission-driven. Our purpose is to enable business worldwide to secure peace, prosperity and opportunity for all. And our mission, which is what we do every day, is we make business work for everyone, every day, everywhere. So I say all that so you understand the kind of platform we build. But our platform is amazing. I mean, we are in almost 160 countries now. We represent more than 50 million businesses globally. Like, you think about this, like almost 2 billion workers rely upon the functioning of the ICC's constituency for their daily work. That's 1 in 3 worker in the world. But the other piece you've got to understand about the ICC, the platform I just described, is that almost 70% of the ICC is in developing and middle-income economies. We're actually in the global south. So we are not just the voice of the real economy, we are the inclusive voice of the real economy. And so that's a relevant piece for Ukraine to think about, for Ukrainian business to think about. I fully understand the orientation towards engagement with the European Union, and we're like, the ICC is all through the European Union. But we're also very conscious that economic development works best when there's trade across, or commerce across borders, but not just borders in Europe. Ukraine is going to have to reorientate its economy to the global world. And the global world is not just Europe. It's also Africa, it's also the Middle East, it's also Asia, and it's also Latin America. We're everywhere. So our platform, and what I was saying to the government yesterday and to business leaders today, is like, use our platform. It's open for you, because we are actually, because of our purpose, which is to enable business, we are determined to ensure that Ukrainian business knows that we are there with them for the long term. But that also means that we're going to do practical stuff to help them as well through this difficult time, but also help reposition them. So just by participating in the ICC, you're actually already participating in the most global, inclusive voice of business. Yeah, well, you know, we came out within 24 hours of the illegal invasion of Ukraine to condemn the actions of Russia. It's really important for us that Ukraine continues, that Ukraine is successful in its defense of the liberty. But in defending the liberty, you're also defending the functioning of a marketplace that enables business to operate. Because we believe that a functioning inclusive market economy is actually good for development. So we actually want that to be an outcome here. But you can't do it without having what I call the economic front. You can have the military front and the economic front. And you can't have an economic front without a successful but functioning private sector. So it's really important for us to be visible, but also to be doing stuff to help maintain the private sector here. And frankly, you've got to have chambers of commerce. Chambers of commerce are kind of like the blood veins of the arteries of an economy. You can't do certificates of origin to enable goods to pass across borders without a chamber of commerce getting it done. You know, they also provide the networking, the business support, the engagement with government to help make certain that laws are relevant to business, or laws that don't work for business are better understood, all that sort of stuff. So business associations are actually really important. And what I like about Ukrainian business associations, they're democratic business associations as well. And so it's really important for us as the global voice of business to not just be rhetorical, but to turn up and support these business associations, particularly when one of the arguments we're running is that to be victorious here and for Ukraine to actually maintain its independence, it's going to have a strong economy, and you won't have that without a strong private sector. Why do I think that Australia is important for Ukraine? Look, it's one of those interesting things. Australia is a long way away from Ukraine. Yes, there is a Ukrainian diaspora there. But, Australia kind of, I am culturally an Australian as well. We don't like bullies. You actually have a friend, thousands of miles across the oceans and across the world, who looks at you and says, we're not going to let you be bullied. So I think Australia is a good friend, is important to Ukraine because it's the friendship of countries like Australia. Similar countries that rely upon a functioning multilateral system, rules-based system. Australia is not a superpower. Australia is a power in its region. But Australia, like Canada, like the UK, like Ukraine, all rely upon a functioning rules-based multilateral system for them to be able to operate. So Australia is not only a friend, but it's also an ally for Ukraine in the maintenance and defence of a rules-based international order.